Let me tell you about the 30 days that completely changed how I thought about money. I was at a point in my life, I'll get into exactly what was happening in the next video, where I had built something, I had made real money, and I still felt like I was missing something fundamental. Like I understood tactics, but not the game itself. How to run plays, but not how the sport actually worked. So I did something that sounds simple, but that most people never actually do. I stopped consuming content about making money and started studying the people who had actually built the most wealth in human history. Not influencers, not guys with courses, the real ones. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Marcus Aurelius, Naval Ravikant. Wow. The people whose results were so undeniable that time itself couldn't erase them. And I went looking for one thing. What did they all have in common? Not their industries. Those were all different. Not their eras. Some of them lived 2,000 years apart. Not their personalities. Some were warm and generous, some were cold and ruthless. What was the single thread that ran through all of them? I found it, and it wasn't hustle. It wasn't intelligence. It wasn't luck. It wasn't connections. It was something so simple that when I found it, I almost dismissed it, and then I sat with it, and it changed everything. My name is Jonathan. I'm 27, from Miami. And this video is that 30 days compressed into the next 16 minutes. Sit down, and this one is the one. Before I tell you what the common thread is, and I'm going to make you earn it, I want to walk you through the people I studied. Because the stories matter. The context matters. And honestly, most people have never heard the real versions of these stories. Let's start with the most obvious one, John D. Rockefeller. Many sources cite Rockefeller as the richest person in American history, not by adjusting for inflation, but by comparing his wealth to the size of the entire American economy at the time. His fortune at its peak represented a larger share of the national economy than any individual fortune before or since. But here's the version of his story I want you to think about. Rockefeller was born in 1839 of modest means. His father was a frequently absent traveling salesman who sold medicinal elixirs. Young Rockefeller helped his mother with chores and earned extra money selling farm products. When the family moved to a suburb of Cleveland, he took accounting and bookkeeping classes in high school. That's where the richest American in history started. When he learned of an oil boom near Titusville, Pennsylvania, while many sought fortunes through risky wildcatting. Rockefeller chose a more certain investment. Refining crude oil into kerosene. Everyone else was gambling on finding oil. Rockefeller decided to make himself essential to the process regardless of who found it. He controlled the refining, the infrastructure, the distribution. He didn't bet on luck. He engineered necessity. Now Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie immigrated as a child to Pittsburgh from Scotland and began working at 13 as a bobbin boy in a textile mill, changing spools of thread for 12 hours a day, 6 days a week for $2 a week. At 16, he became a telegraph messenger, then a telegraph operator, then a personal assistant to the superintendent of the Pennsylvania Railroad. Every single job Carnegie took, he mastered completely and then used the access it gave him to learn the next level up. He wasn't collecting paychecks. He was collecting knowledge and proximity to power. Carnegie's strategy in steel involved what's called vertical integration, controlling every aspect of production from raw materials to transportation. This approach not only revolutionized steel production, but also set a blueprint for modern industrial operations. And Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor, one of the most powerful men in the history of the world, governed an empire during plague, during war, during financial crisis. He kept a private journal his entire adult life, not for publication, not for his legacy, for himself, just to think clearly every single morning about how to do his job with integrity. That journal became Meditations, one of the most widely read books on leadership and philosophy 2,000 years after it was written. A man with unlimited power writing privately about self-discipline, about not letting circumstances make his decisions for him, about the gap between what happens to you and how you respond. And finally, Naval Ravikant. Whack the modern version of this conversation. Naval's core argument is that true wealth comes from owning assets that earn while you sleep instead of renting out your time. He says to build specific knowledge by following your curiosity and natural talents, then combine it with leverage, capital, people, code, and media, and play long-term games with long-term people. Naval didn't inherit wealth. He didn't go to the fanciest school. He built his fortune by thinking more clearly than the people around him and being willing to play a longer game. 4 people, different centuries, different industries, different personalities, different starting points, one common thread. Here's what I found when I looked at all of them side by side. Every single one of them, without exception, had an obsessive relationship with learning. Not casual learning, not scrolling through content and calling it research. Obsessive, systematic, deliberate learning that they treated like their most important competitive weapon. In a study of 233 self-made millionaires, 88% reported reading every single day to increase their knowledge about their job and their industry. Not occasionally, not when they felt like it. Every day, Rockefeller kept journals his entire life. Not just diaries, but detailed notes on every business transaction, every lesson, every failure. He was obsessively systematic about capturing what he learned. His core philosophy, as laid out in 38 private letters to his son written over 56 years, was that obstacles are opportunities and stagnation is death. He believed the size of achievement is determined by the level of thinking. And he treated his own thinking as something to be constantly upgraded. Carnegie didn't just work at the railroad, he read everything he could find about steel, about finance, about the men who were winning in business above him. He used every rung of the ladder not just to make money, but to learn what the next rung looked like before he got there. Marcus Aurelius wrote every morning, not about what he needed to do that day, but about how to think, about the principles that should govern his decisions. He was essentially debugging his own operating system, daily. As for decades, Naval's entire framework is built on long-term compounding, not just of money, but of knowledge, reputation, and relationships. He argues that trust compounds, reputation compounds, and wealth and opportunity flow to those who think in decades, not quarters. They were all learning machines. That's the thread. But here's the nuance, and this is the part most people miss when they hear, just read more books. It wasn't what they were learning. It was how they were learning. The relationship they had with new information was fundamentally different from how most people consume content. Most people learn reactively. They learn what's in front of them, what's trending, what their environment puts in their path. They're essentially passengers in their own education. Rockefeller, Carnegie, Naval. They learned strategically. They identified the specific knowledge gaps that stood between them and the next level, and they hunted that knowledge down deliberately. They weren't consumers of information. They were hunters. Now here's where I have to tell you something that I think is the most practically important thing in this entire video. When I did this 30-day study, I went in looking for tactics. I wanted the moves, the strategies, the specific things they did that I could copy. And yes, I found tactics. I found strategies. There's real actionable stuff in the history of these people. But the thing that hit me hardest wasn't a tactic, it was a concept. Naval says something that I keep coming back to again and again. You can work in a restaurant 80 hours a week and you're not going to get rich. Not getting rich is about knowing what to do, who to do it with, and when to do it. It is much more about understanding than purely hard work. Read that again slowly. It is much more about understanding than purely hard work. This is the thing that nobody told me growing up in Miami. The thing nobody in my neighborhood was talking about. We were taught that hard work was the answer. Show up, put in the hours, grind, sacrifice. And I believed it. I lived it. But Naval is saying something different. He's saying hard work without understanding is just motion. It might look impressive. It might feel virtuous. But if it's pointed in the wrong direction, if it's not informed by genuine knowledge of what actually creates value, it's just expensive movement. And when I looked at Rockefeller and Carnegie through that lens, and it clicked completely. Rockefeller didn't just work harder than the other oilmen. He understood the oil business at a structural level that most people didn't. He understood that whoever controlled refining controlled everything, not because someone told him, but because he studied it until he saw it himself. Carnegie didn't just work longer hours at the railroad. He understood steel the way other people understood their own face in the mirror. He understood vertical integration before that term existed as a concept. He saw the whole system while everyone else was looking at their part of it. The understanding came before the results. Always. In every single case I studied. Naval calls this specific knowledge, and he defines it precisely. If society can easily train someone else to do what you do, you can be replaced. But specific knowledge feels like play to you, but looks like work to others. That distinction, feels like play to you, looks like work to others, is one of the most important filters I've ever found for evaluating what to invest my time in. What do you do that other people find exhausting but you find energizing? What do you understand about something that most people around you don't? What problem have you solved through real experience that someone else is still struggling with? That's your specific knowledge, and that's where the path starts. Let me tell you what happened when I applied this framework to my own life, because I think this is where it gets real. After I sold my agency, and I'll tell the full story of that in the next video, I had a moment of genuine confusion about what came next. I had money, I had experience, but I didn't have clarity about the direction. And so I did what I described at the beginning of this video. I spent 30 days just studying, not doing, not building, just studying the people who had figured this out at the highest level. And what I found, not just in the historical figures but in Naval's work specifically, was a framework that I could actually map onto my own situation. Naval's concept of productize yourself became the clearest single instruction I had ever been given. You take the stuff that feels like play to you, your specific combination of skills, curiosities, and personality, and you wrap it in something repeatable and scalable. For me, that was marketing systems and client acquisition. I developed real specific knowledge in that area through years of actual work with real businesses. It felt natural to me in a way that I had never appreciated as valuable, because I was inside it and it felt normal. But when I looked at it through Naval's lens, when I asked, does this feel like play to me but look like work to others? The answer was clearly yes. The things I had figured out about getting clients, building systems, creating content that converted, most business owners struggled with that. I didn't. Not because I was smarter, because I had put in the specific hours in that specific area. The question wasn't what to build. The question was how to package what I already knew in a way that didn't require me to show up personally for every transaction. Naval's most important insight about leverage in the digital age is this: the most interesting form of leverage is products that have no marginal cost of replication. If you can't code, write books and blogs, record videos and podcasts, you don't need anyone's permission to do them. You can go out on the internet, find your audience, build a business, create a product, and make people happy just by uniquely expressing yourself. No marginal cost of replication. That phrase stopped me cold. Think about what that means. A course I build once, it can sell to 100 people or 100,000 people, and my cost doesn't change. Like a YouTube video I record once, it can get 1,000 views or 1,000,000 views, and I don't do any additional work. The leverage is in the replication. Rockefeller's leverage was infrastructure. Control the refining, and you control the whole industry regardless of who pumps the oil. Carnegie's leverage was vertical integration. Control every part of the supply chain, and you eliminate the cost that kills your competitors. Naval's leverage in the digital age is media and code. Build once. Distribute infinitely. The economics are almost identical to what Rockefeller built with oil. Except you don't need $340 billion to get started. You need a laptop and something worth saying. That realization was the moment everything changed for me. Now I want to slow down and give you the practical application. Because I have spent 5 videos building toward this point, and I think you deserve the real version of what this means for you specifically. Here is what Rockefeller, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, Marcus Aurelius, and Naval all understood that the average person doesn't. Wealth is not a destination. It is a set of skills applied consistently over a long enough period of time. Naval makes this explicit. I like to think that if I lost all my money and you dropped me on a random street in any English-speaking country, within 5 or 10 years, I'd be wealthy again. It's just a skill set I've developed that anyone can develop. That is not a brag. That is a principle. He is saying that wealth is a reproducible output of a specific set of inputs. And the inputs are learnable. The research on self-made millionaires confirms this at scale. 80% of self-made millionaires in one major study said they were happy in their career. Not because being happy made them rich, but because following genuine interest is how specific knowledge gets built. You cannot develop deep expertise in something you're forcing yourself to do. In a 5-year study of 233 wealthy individuals and 128 people living in poverty, the single biggest difference in mindset was this: 98% of wealthy individuals believed in limitless possibilities and opportunities, while 78% of lower-income individuals believed optimism wasn't necessary for success. That's not just positive thinking. That's a belief about the nature of the game. If you believe the game is fixed, but the idea that the outcomes are already decided, that the opportunities aren't real, that people like you don't win, you will not take the actions that lead to winning. Because why would you? The belief determines the behavior. The behavior determines the outcome. Rockefeller wrote to his son that the size of achievement is determined by the level of thinking, and that the goal must be great because if you want to be successful, there must be stimulation. He was describing in the 19th century what modern behavioral science now calls goal-setting theory. The size of your ambition sets the ceiling on your result, not your circumstances, not your resources, your thinking. All of these people, across centuries, across industries, across wildly different circumstances, were saying the same thing in different words. The limit is almost always internal before it's external. Let me give you the 3 things I walked away from those 30 days knowing that I didn't know before. First, the question is never, do I have what it takes? The question is always, have I developed the right understanding yet? Every single person I studied started from behind. Rockefeller started from near poverty. Carnegie started at 13 years old, making $2 a week. Naval started without the Silicon Valley connections that most successful tech investors had. The entry point was not the variable. The commitment to developing understanding was the variable. Second, specific knowledge compounds in a way that general knowledge does not. Being generally smart, generally hardworking, generally motivated. These things have value, but they don't compound. The person who goes deeper than anyone else on one specific thing, who becomes the person you call for that problem, builds leverage that generalists never access. Find the intersection of what genuinely interests you, what you've actually built real experience in, and what other people struggle with. That intersection is your asset. Third, the medium matters as much as the message. Rockefeller's medium was infrastructure. Carnegie's was vertical integration. Naval's medium is media, and specifically digital media, which has zero cost of distribution and unlimited reach. The message, your specific knowledge, is valuable, but without the right medium to scale it, it stays trapped inside one person's calendar. The medium is how the message creates leverage. And here's the thing that connects all 3 of those points back to where we are in 2026. The combination of specific knowledge plus digital media plus the understanding that wealth is a learnable skill. That combination has never been more accessible in human history, not even close. Rockefeller needed to control physical infrastructure. Carnegie needed to own steel mills. The barrier to entry was enormous. You need a laptop. You need something real to say. You need the discipline to show up consistently. That's it. That's the entire entry fee in 2026. The people who study this, who develop real understanding, who build specific knowledge and then package it using the leverage tools that are sitting right in front of us, they are going to look back in 10 years and realize they were building during one of the greatest windows of opportunity in human history. And the people who were too distracted, too comfortable, too caught up in the performance of progress to actually do the work, they'll be in the same place they are today. I know which one I'm choosing. I've been choosing it every day. Here is where I want to leave you. In the next video, I'm going to tell you the full story. The agency, the sale, the pivot. Exactly what I built, how I built it, what I got wrong. And what the path actually looks like from zero. I've been dropping pieces of this story across the last 6 videos because I wanted you to have the framework before I gave you the narrative. Because a story without a framework is just entertainment. A framework without a story is just theory. You now have both. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Confine yourself to the present," not because the future doesn't matter. He planned meticulously, but because the present moment is the only place where the work actually gets done. The only place where the understanding gets built. The only place where the specific knowledge compounds. Rockefeller didn't become the richest man in American history by waiting for the right moment. He became it by making the present moment the right moment, over and over and over again. Why, for decades. You have everything you need to start, right now, today. I'm Jonathan, 27, Miami, and I studied 30 days so you don't have to start from scratch. Subscribe. Comment below, tell me, what's your specific knowledge? What do you know how to do that feels like play to you but looks like work to everyone else? I genuinely want to know, because I think most of you are sitting on more than you realize. I'll see you in the next video. That one's going to be different.